So, Brian, I'm ready.
You can take your mask off.
Thank you for taking my mask off.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. And thank you to my fellow panelists and especially to our host. Congratulations, Brian, if I could jump right in on the creation of this architectural record, and probably to echo the comments that have preceded mine. I think it's an important book, particularly because it is a record, and because what has been said by all of these speakers, including Afra, is that in probably another decade, maybe 20 or 30% of what you see in this book will not exist anymore. And that is why this is such a landmark piece of work, and thank you for doing it. I am happy to be the last of this esteemed panel to speak because, unlike all of you, and it speaks a lot of what you have asked Assad and Gary and Stephen and Afra, unlike all of you, may I say with great respect to all of you, that coming from the background that I do, I have had more skin in the game than any of you. Because we have paid financially, repeatedly, for the failures of Port of Spain. We have paid in the decline in commercial value. We have paid in the decline that has occurred in the population that you have pointed to. And I have tried to address some of those issues in the comments I made. And may I please respectfully say that that has driven me, and including the training that I received in management, which is really problem solving. I was trained to understand and diagnose what the problem was, and then to propose solutions and to choose an option as a decision. That is what I was trained to do. And I was very highly regarded in that field when I graduated. And I came here to this country and found that there is very little serious analysis being done, because what we did at independence, and this is why I'm glad I'm the last to speak, and I said it in my report, what we did at independence can be summed up as having removed every iota of accountability that existed prior to independence. That is why the best laid plans that have been made have not been implemented. That is why there is no procurement legislation, because procurement legislation requires accountability. They have to tell you what they're going to spend the money on and what is the return. They don't want to tell you that. That is why they are building apartments and awarding contracts to builders repeatedly, and for which Afra Raymond paid, was the head of the, and questioned it, and was asked to demit his office because of it. And the reason for that is that they want to do it in a way that suits them without accountability. They don't have to answer the question. Am I being political? No, I am being conscientious. Because how many years do I have left on the face of this earth, as some of you have alluded to, for this God-blessed country of ours to be set right? So, there's no accountability, and that explains everything. It explains the vagrants on the street, because there's no agency that will take responsibility for it. Indeed, we don't even pay attention to the fact that many of them are fatherless, and that we have allowed that model of constant fatherless children to be evolved without a comment. We haven't done that. Why has the population collapsed? Afra pointed to many of the conditions. I would say to you, as I have said repeatedly, that if you want people to live and sleep in the city, it has to be safe for them to be there during the day. If you're not safe in the day, why would you spend your night there? If you can't walk the streets in peace and not be attacked for your valuables during the day, how could you imagine yourself sleeping and living there? How could you do it? Assad and Gary, and particularly Assad, gave us deep analysis. I enjoyed listening to you, Assad, because the depth of your understanding of the historic nature of the development is critical. I want to say, however, especially to Gary, that even though 60 years in your timeline mightn't seem like a lot of time, I don't think that as intelligent people living in this age of 2021, that we need any more time to discover what the trajectory is. We know what it is. We have seen the trend, and you can ask yourself constantly, as Stephen did, are we failing as planners, you said? No, you're not failing as planners. You are doing everything that you know how to do and contributing as much as you know how to do against the tide of failed accountability. It was the intention of the newly independent governments of these colonies to wipe out accountability so that they could do what they wanted. They assumed that that was what the model was in England because you appointed the Senate and you did this and the Prime Minister was the leader of the... But it has failed us. It is an old world model that has destroyed us. And it was intended to do so because they wanted to have their way. And if you live in a place where one group, namely the political party of the day, has their way totally, to the exclusion of all the other groups, the planners, the architects, the stakeholders, the real estate assessors, if you act in a way that negates all of the input of all of those stakeholders, you are destined to get what you have now, which is that we are all nervous about going out to our cars tonight, and that we cannot hold anybody accountable for that, even though there's a police station 2 blocks away. Even though we know that when that prison officer was shot to death, 2 minutes or 2 seconds behind the shooting car came a police jeep. And no one has been held accountable as to how those men got away. And that is where we live, and that is why we need to understand that the lack of accountability has destroyed all the processes on which we could rely to reverse the trend that we are dealing with. All accountability was removed, whether it is in law enforcement, planning, healthcare services, teaching. Who knows? Who holds accountable? Do you know what the absentee rate is in the schools? 30, 35, 38% absentee when we didn't have COVID. And now that COVID is gone and they want them to come back and teach, they don't want to come back. Why should they have to come back? They stay at home and teach from home. I mean, we didn't even know who the members of the Police Service Commission were. The Police Service Commission appoints a commissioner of police, and crime goes up 400% in 2 years. Does anybody hold them accountable? We don't even know who they are. Forget holding the commissioner responsible. What about holding the people that appointed him? And did you look at the merit list that they had for the appointment of the police commissioner? There is no merit on the list. Suitability of interview and job fit and so on. Did they say anything about crime fighting record, number of crimes solved, number of criminals arrested, number of successful convictions? It doesn't exist. You want to understand, Stephen, why this failure has occurred. You want to understand, Afra, why the population... No, you said the city had collapsed. I agree with you 100%. The city has collapsed. Is the Port of Spain City Corporation dependent on the revenue from the city of Port of Spain to survive? Absolutely not. If they were, do you think they would be assisting in the damage that's being done to the business community? They wouldn't. Is the property tax going to be used to enrich and to fortify the services in the city? No, that property tax is going to be taken from the city and used somewhere else. And who is accountable for it? And all of the complaints that have existed, you talked about East Port of Spain. I know you were talking about the site that was given to Despers to build a panyard. And I mean, that was carted for housing. And the contracts are given out, and the average cost of the apartment is 2 million or 2.5 million. Who could afford that? Why are you building them? Anyway, Stephen asked if we should enter politics. How do we solve the problem? I don't think we have to enter politics. I think what we have... Sorry?
You said, God forbid.
God forbid, you said. I think that what we need is a new model of governance in which we demand that people be accountable for what they're supposed to do. That is what I think we need to do. This damn nonsense that we created at independence with a set of service commissions. You can't question anybody. You can't hold anybody to account. And in which the public service thinks that once they get a coat of arms on their lapel or a public service job, as they will tell you, the poor people will tell you, if you have a government work, you feel you're a ruler in the country, make you stand in line for 4 hours until you get to the counter to pay your fee, and then tell you the cashier going on lunch, come back tomorrow. And you've been in the line for 4 hours. Without saying, well, we're cutting off the line here, close the door, don't let anybody else join, and we will take the rest of the people. That is what we gave ourselves with this governance model. 60 years is more than enough time for us to know where the trajectory is. I think the city of Port of Spain has very serious challenges. I alluded to them in my contribution to Brian's book. The destruction of the transportation system. Are you kidding me? You shut down a train system. You know why they shut it down? I was approached by a union man. He was in his late 70s. I was on the streets of Port of Spain, and he told me, he said, Mr. Aboud, Dr. Williams was angry with the workers' union for the railway. He was angry with the railway union, and he came to work that morning, and he called the transport minister and said, shut that damn thing down. I'll go show them who is boss in this country. And that's what happened. That's what I was told. Do you have another version of the story as to why you took a mechanism that used to transport thousands of people in minutes and replaced it with a road network that only you could use, unless you have a friend in the party that could have a pass? Could you explain that to me? Except to say that we destroyed a lot of our chances with this model, I would like to say that accountability is law and order. Accountability is a lawful society, and there is none of it here. Zero. There's no accountability, and that is my contribution to you and to this esteemed panel about why our chances are so limited and why all of you have pointed to the difficulties that we have been facing. Thank you very much.